Hi everybody, in this video we're going to cover the use of PyCharm for those people who are not already familiar with it. This will be a very basic introduction to the tool in which you plan to cover only the most basic features that you're likely going to use initially. By this point you should already have PyCharm installed on your system, and if not, please go back to one of the prior installation videos that explains how to do that. So when you launch PyCharm you should see a dialog that looks like the one shown here. And for convenience, it's already showing me that I've defined a Python project, so I can simply click on this to open up the development environment. One of the main reasons for using PyCharm, also known as an integrated development environment, is to help you develop code, which also includes debugging it. Most of the code that we'll be working with in this course is going to be contained in Jupyter notebooks, which are really great for instructional purposes, but it's actually quite difficult to debug code within a notebook, which is why we recommend also learning how to use PyCharm so that you can debug code or even use it as a learning aid by copying code from the notebooks into PyCharm and then stepping through each line of code in the debugger to better understand intermediate results and also what the code is actually doing. So for all these reasons, we highly recommend getting familiar with at least the basic functionality. If you're already familiar or have a preference for another development environment, that's great. But for those of you who are relatively new to Python development, I would highly recommend using PyCharm. It happens to be my personal favorite, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So in the remainder of this video, we're going to cover some of the most basic features of the tool and orient you to the layout. And then in the next video, we'll continue on with a brief demonstration on how to debug a simple Python script. So with that introduction, let's go ahead and just take a look at the tool. This is the Explorer view on the left-hand side. Notice that there's three tabs here, Project, Commit, and Pull Requests. It's just the Project tab that we'll be working with, and you can just click on that and toggle this view back and forth. Notice that here it's highlighted the Python root directory where my project is defined, and if I expand that, I can see all these various folders inside the project. So it's not uncommon to actually have numerous files and folders within a single project, and in this case, for this course, we have several different folders all contained within this single Python project, which is actually very convenient. And then further below here on the bottom, there's several tabs. This one is defaulted to the terminal, so you can see I have a terminal window here. Notice that it puts me in the root directory of my project. And then it's also indicating here that we're in the OpenCV virtual environment, which we described in a previous video. And then notice also here there's another tab that says Python console. So for convenience, you could click on that and interact directly with the console if you like. And then finally, this area here in the middle is for your source code. So for example, if we click on this folder here and expand it, this source file, if I double click on it, will appear in the source code area. So this is the file that we're going to debug in the next video, but just to continue on here a little bit and taking a look at some of the menus at the top, starting with PyCharm preferences. So here you can see that PyCharm is highly customizable. There's lots of things that you can configure. Just point out a few that you might be interested in. Under Appearance and Behavior, and then Appearance, you can set the theme here to your preference. And then under Editor Fonts, you can set the size of the font. And then there's one other item here under Editor General, Gutter Icons. This will become more important when we start debugging a program, but I just wanted to highlight that now as something we want to come back to so I can explain a little bit more about that. So although this is very configurable, just going with the defaults is a great way to go. Maybe you want to set the theme for your development environment and a few other things, but generally accepting the defaults works just fine. And then moving on to the file menu, here you can open up a new project. You can open up a recent project, close a project, and then oftentimes I'll just use this convenience save all to save everything that I've been working on. And then further to the right, Run. The Run menu is something you'll use all the time. Here you can run or debug this particular script. So this is the most recent one that you've been working with. If you want to run or debug another script, then you would go down to either of these, and then you would be presented with a dialog as to which script you wanted to execute. And then one more thing that's worth mentioning is under Window, there's a nice feature here. You can restore your default layout. So this can be helpful if your layout somehow gets in a state that's difficult to change. You can simply restore the default and get back to something that makes more sense. So that's just a brief overview of the tool to orient you. And in the next video, we're going to actually debug this program and show you how the debugging features work within PyCharm. So that's all we wanted to cover here, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.